Proverbs 2, verses 1 to 15. My son, if you accept my words and treasure my commands inside you, in order to pay attention to wisdom with your ear and reach out with your heart for understanding, if you indeed call for intelligence, if you raise your voice for understanding, if you search for it like money and hunt for it as if it were hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of Yahweh and find the knowledge of God. Because Yahweh gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound judgment for upright people. He is a shield for those who walk in integrity, to protect those who walk on paths of justice. He guards the way of his godly ones. Then you will understand righteousness, justice, and uprightness, every good pathway. Because wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Foresight will stand guard over you, understanding will protect you, to save you from the evil way, from the man who speaks perverse things. From those who abandon upright paths to walk in ways of darkness, those who enjoy doing evil and rejoice in the perversity of evil, whose pathways are crooked and devious things are in their pathways. So this is another poem from Solomon to his son. It has a different structure, though. The last one we said was a chiasm. This one is something of an acrostic. So an acrostic is typically a poem where the first letter of each line of the poem is with a corresponding letter of the alphabet. So you could start a poem with the first line has letter A, and then the second line starts with the letter B, and the third line starts with the letter C in English. That's something of what's happening here. The most famous acrostic poem in the Bible is Psalm 119, where all of its over 100 verses are all in acrostic form by the different letters of the Hebrew alphabet. Something similar is happening here. While not every line starts with a different letter, the first half of the poem is all starting with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Aleph, and the second half of the poem is starting with the Hebrew letter Lamed, which is the middle letter of the alphabet, or the denoting of the second half of the alphabet. And so there seems to be some connection here to the idea of an acrostic poem. But what you get from that is a building of tension. So if you were reading this in Hebrew, you would understand there's sort of like this buildup. There's piling ideas on top of each other because they're all starting with Aleph, 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 Aleph. And then in the second half, you have Lamed, 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 and so on. And you can see that from the words, but it's obviously more beautiful in the Hebrew, that he is saying here, look, if you accept my words and treasure my commands inside you, there's this kind of flow of, okay, first there's the listening, and then there's what are you going to do with the things that you've listened to, right? So he says, accept my words and then treasure them. Well, how do you treasure something? You think about it regularly, right? You're constantly worried about its well-being. You might treasure a spouse or treasure a certain possession. You're thinking about it regularly. Well, those words, think about them regularly. Pay attention and then reach out with your heart for understanding. So paying attention is going to beget more needing to pay attention. In other words, when you receive wisdom, that wisdom is going to lead you to want more wisdom. You're going to actually start to pursue it yourself. Call for intelligence and raise your voice for understanding. So you're going to want to hear those words, and then those words are going to start coming out of your mouth, right? If you have that wisdom, you're going to start to speak it. If you want wisdom, start trying to speak wise things. And it turns out that more wisdom is going to come to you. The way that this generally happens is that if you start actually talking about intelligent things in conversations with other people, their wisdom or lack thereof is going to be exposed and is actually going to be helpful for you in understanding what is wise. What we very often do in our conversations with our friends or our family is talk about things that absolutely don't matter at all. They're just shooting the breeze, they're small talk, and there's some value in that, but as far as gaining wisdom, there is no value in those things. And then he says, if you search for it like money and hunt for it as if it were hidden treasure, then you will understand Yahweh. So there is a desire that every one of us has to have money. I think that's irrefutable in our culture. What if we had that same desire for wisdom? But the reason I get up and work every day is not primarily because I get money, but that's part of the reason that I do. Maybe you do too. What if every day we had that same desire to find wisdom, to listen to it, to speak it to others, to treasure it in our hearts and ponder it, to continue to pursue it because it's more valuable than hidden treasure or money? Because then we would understand God. And if we understand God, he says, he's going to give us more wisdom out of his mouth, from his words, by the way. He is going to give us knowledge and understanding. right? We're always getting wisdom from the scriptures. The Bible says that we don't hear anything from God other than from the scriptures. And then he says, as the poem starts to shift to its second half, that all these things are going to come to you, wisdom and knowledge and so on, but the big theme of them is protection. So how would wisdom protect you? I think it's easy to think like God and his sovereignty is going to protect us, and there's certainly a layer of that God will work out things in our lives to make sure that we are safe. But we have to define, first of all, what safe means. Safe doesn't always mean physically safe. In my church this past Sunday, we talked about how Jesus sent his disciples out into a deadly storm as part of teaching them wisdom. So it doesn't mean you're always going to be physically safe. It does mean that you are going to be spiritually safe, that you're going to be protected from lies and foolish talk, from mockers and gullible people and scoffers. You're going to be protected from all those things because you have wisdom. In a sense, you're going to be living in line with the way the world was built to work. You're going to be following the blueprints, if you want to use an engineering or architectural analysis or analogy. As you gain wisdom, you're going to find yourself making fewer mistakes. It's just the nature of wisdom. You're also going to find yourself making decisions that are going to preemptively avoid mistakes that you could get into if you had not been thinking about things wisely. And so what does a wise person do? They listen, they ponder, they start speaking wisdom, and they continue to search for it as if it were as valuable or even more valuable than money or hidden treasure. The result will be that we will not be like those who abandon upright paths and walk in darkness, who speak perverse things or whose paths are crooked, because we will have foresight, of the ability to see what's going to happen before it's going to happen. Not like a prophet, but like a wise person. That's how to grow up.